All light, peace, and blessings to you, Pisces. There is a feeling that appears immediately at the beginning of this reading. And honestly, it is stronger than anything else surrounding your energy right now. The feeling of finally trying to free yourself from something that still occupies space inside your heart. Not necessarily sadness, not necessarily anger, not necessarily regret, something deeper, something that still awakens emotion whenever you think about it. Perhaps a person, perhaps a situation, perhaps a dream that never unfolded the way you hoped, perhaps a chapter that ended differently than you imagined. Whatever it is, the reading shows that you have already realized something important. Ignoring it is no longer working. For a while you tried. You distracted yourself. You stayed busy, you changed the subject, you focused on other things. You convinced yourself you had moved on. But certain emotional wounds only begin healing when they are finally faced directly. And honestly, that is exactly what I see happening, because Pisces feels differently than most people. Much differently. While others experience something and move on quickly, you absorb, you reflect, you process, you revisit, you search for meaning, you search for understanding. And because of that, some experiences remain alive inside you far longer than anyone realizes. The beautiful part of this reading is that I do not see weakness, I see transformation. Because you are entering a phase where you finally become stronger than the memories that once controlled you. Not because they disappear, not because they stop existing, because you evolve beyond them. And honestly, that changes everything. There is another powerful energy surrounding you, emotional intensity. And I want to say this carefully, because I do not see negativity. I see depth. You feel more, you notice more, you connect more. You care more, you love more, you worry more, everything happens at a deeper level. And when that energy is directed properly, it becomes one of your greatest gifts. But when it has no direction, it becomes overwhelming. The reading shows emotions searching for an outlet. And honestly, this is important because emotions that remain trapped eventually express themselves somewhere else through overthinking, through stress, through exhaustion, through unhealthy habits, through emotional reactions, through worries that become larger than they need to be. The spiritual message is simple. Find a healthy place for your emotions to flow. Prayer, writing, art, exercise, music, nature, conversation, whatever helps your soul breathe. Because your emotions are not your enemy, they simply need movement. There is also a beautiful spiritual energy appearing. Your connection to faith becomes stronger. Your connection to intuition becomes stronger. Your connection to the unseen becomes stronger. And honestly, this makes perfect sense because Pisces has always been one of the most intuitive signs of the zodiac. You notice things that others miss. You sense things that others ignore. You feel energies that others never recognize. And during this period, that gift becomes even stronger. The reading repeatedly shows intuition trying to guide you, trying to protect you, trying to reveal something important. So pay attention, because there is a huge difference between fear and intuition. Fear creates confusion. Intuition creates clarity. And what appears here feels very much like clarity. The chapter closes with a powerful image. A Pisces standing in front of old emotional burdens, not running, not hiding, not avoiding, finally facing them. And honestly, that is where true freedom begins. There is something very interesting happening around you right now. While many people are focused entirely on what is happening around them, you seem to be living through a period where almost everything is happening inside you. And honestly, that can be exhausting. Because when the soul begins moving, the entire world feels more intense. A simple conversation suddenly carries deeper meaning. A certain song awakens emotions you thought were long gone. An old memory returns without warning. A brief encounter lingers in your thoughts for hours. A small detail becomes impossible to ignore. And honestly, this is happening because you are deeply connected to your emotions right now. There is something beautiful about that. Pisces possesses a rare ability. You do not only hear what people say, you sense what they are trying not to say. You notice sadness hidden behind smiles. You notice worry hidden behind confidence. You notice loneliness hidden behind laughter. You notice tension hidden behind calm words. And honestly, that gift is extraordinary. But there is also a danger attached to it, because the reading shows you absorbing emotions that do not belong to you. Read that carefully, because this message appears repeatedly. There is a huge difference between empathy and emotional overload. Empathy allows you to understand people. Overload causes you to carry their burdens. And lately, the reading suggests that some of your energy has been consumed by situations that were never yours to carry. Other people's problems, other people's worries, other people's decisions. other people's responsibilities. And honestly, it has been draining you more than you realize. There is another powerful realization beginning to emerge. You start becoming more aware of your own needs. And honestly, this is overdue. Because for a long time, your focus has been elsewhere. Helping others, supporting others, advising others, protecting others, comforting others, listening to others, being available for others. But now a very important question appears. Who has been taking care of you? The reading becomes very quiet when this question appears, because deep down, you already know the answer. And honestly, part of your current transformation begins here. You stop assuming that caring for yourself is selfish. You stop feeling guilty for needing rest. You stop apologizing for needing boundaries. You stop believing that your needs should always come last. And that realization changes everything. There is also a strong energy surrounding your home environment. The reading repeatedly highlights something connected to your house, your property, a family space, a living arrangement, a repair, a maintenance issue, a practical matter that requires attention. And honestly, it may feel inconvenient at first, but the reading does not show lasting problems. It shows solutions, resolutions, corrections, things being handled successfully. So do not allow a temporary inconvenience to become a major source of stress. Because the energy surrounding this situation improves quickly, there is another beautiful message appearing. Never underestimate your resilience. Because many people mistake sensitivity for fragility. And honestly, nothing could be further from the truth. You have survived situations that would have broken other people. You have carried burdens that others never saw. You have found light during incredibly dark seasons. You have rebuilt yourself more times than most people realize. And because of that, there is a tremendous strength hidden inside you. The reading shows you beginning to recognize that strength. Not through pride, through awareness, through experience, through wisdom. There is another energy appearing very strongly, renewal, a gradual reorganization of your life, not chaos, not destruction, reorganization. Things that no longer make sense begin losing importance. Things that truly matter begin gaining strength. Priorities shift, perspectives shift, relationships shift. And honestly, this is happening for a reason, because the next chapter of your life requires less emotional weight and much more clarity. The chapter closes with a powerful image. A Pisces slowly releasing burdens that no longer belong in their future. Not becoming colder, not becoming distant, simply becoming wiser about where their energy belongs. And honestly, that wisdom may become one of your greatest blessings. There is one word that keeps appearing throughout this part of your reading, direction. And honestly, that may be one of the most important themes of your entire cycle, because the truth is this: you do not lack strength, you do not lack intuition. You do not lack sensitivity. You do not lack talent. You do not lack potential. What sometimes becomes difficult is knowing where all of that energy should be directed. The reading shows you entering a very emotional period. But emotional intensity is not the problem. The problem would be allowing emotions to control your decisions. And honestly, that is not what I see happening. What I see is something much more beautiful. I see a Pisces slowly learning how to transform emotion into wisdom, feeling into growth, sensitivity into power, experience into understanding. And that changes everything. There is another fascinating energy appearing around your spirituality. Your connection to the unseen world seems stronger than usual. Not necessarily through dramatic experiences, through subtle ones. A dream that stays with you, a repeated number, a strange coincidence, a message that arrives at exactly the right moment, a feeling that refuses to disappear. And honestly, the reading suggests these moments are not random, because Pisces has always shared a unique relationship with intuition. You often know things before you can explain them. You sense shifts before they become visible. You feel changes before they happen. And during this period, that gift becomes extremely active. The spiritual message is simple: pay attention, because guidance is arriving. Perhaps not through logic, but through awareness. There is another important shift happening. For the first time in a long while, you begin focusing on yourself. And honestly, this is not selfishness. It is necessity, because for too long your energy has been divided. A little for family, a little for friends, a little for people you care about, a little for people who needed help, a little for situations that were never truly yours to solve. And somewhere in the middle of all that, You forgot to reserve enough energy for yourself. Now your soul begins saying something important. It is my turn. And honestly, that message needs to be heard because nobody can rebuild their own life while spending all their energy managing everyone else's. There is another situation appearing very strongly. Someone you love, someone important, someone whose happiness genuinely matters to you. The reading shows you paying close attention to this person's choices, their direction, their decisions, their future. And honestly, part of you wants to protect them, part of you wants to guide them, part of you wants to prevent them from making mistakes. But there is an important lesson here. Not every lesson can be taught. Some lessons must be lived. And honestly, that can be difficult for Pisces because when you love someone, you want to shield them from pain. You want to carry part of their burden. You want to make the road easier. But sometimes the greatest support is simply being present, not controlling, not rescuing, not carrying their journey, simply standing beside them. The reading repeatedly emphasizes this. Presence is enough. There is also a very positive energy surrounding your professional life. Progress appears, growth appears, learning appears, improvement appears. Perhaps not as quickly as you would like, but undeniably. The reading shows your confidence beginning to return. And honestly, this matters more than you realize. Because there have been moments recently where you questioned yourself, questioned your decisions, questioned your abilities, questioned your path. But now something changes. Those doubts begin losing power, and confidence begins taking their place. Not arrogance, not certainty about everything. Confidence in your ability to adapt. Confidence in your ability to learn. Confidence in your ability to move forward. And honestly, that confidence becomes one of your greatest assets. The chapter closes with a powerful image. A Pisces no longer overwhelmed by their sensitivity. Instead, learning how to use it, learning how to trust it, learning how to transform it into one of their greatest strengths. And honestly, that transformation may change your entire future. There is a very specific situation gaining strength in your life now, and honestly, it revolves around someone you love deeply, This could be a family member, A, close friend, A, child, A, partner. Someone who occupies a significant place inside your heart. The reading shows you watching this person more carefully than usual, observing their choices, observing their behavior, observing changes that seem to be happening around them. And honestly, part of you feels concerned. Not because you believe disaster is coming, not because you expect failure, because love naturally worries. Love imagines possibilities. Love considers risks. Love wants to protect. And Pisces feels this more intensely than most people. The message that appears here is beautiful. Trust. Because when I observe this situation closely, I do not see catastrophe. I do not see loss. I do not see major problems. What I see is growth, movement, development. Someone stepping outside their comfort zone, someone making choices that may feel unfamiliar, someone beginning a chapter that requires independence. And honestly, that can feel uncomfortable when you care deeply. Because sometimes watching someone grow requires us to release a little control. And that is exactly what the reading is teaching. Not every concern is a warning. Sometimes concern is simply love wearing a disguise. There is another strong energy appearing around communication. And honestly, this deserves attention because the reading repeatedly highlights messages, documents, emails, forms, schedules, appointments, information, details. Anything involving written communication requires extra care during this period, not because something terrible is happening, because your mind is carrying many things at once, and when the mind becomes overloaded, small details become easier to miss. The spiritual advice here is simple. Review everything twice. A message, a document, an agreement, a commitment, an appointment. A simple review prevents unnecessary complications. And honestly, that small habit could save you considerable frustration. There is another fascinating energy surrounding the people closest to you, because the reading shows you beginning to notice behaviors that once escaped your attention. Comments, attitudes, patterns, habits, repeated actions. And honestly, some of them are beginning to bother you more than before. Not because people suddenly changed, because your awareness changed. And that creates an important realization. Love does not require unlimited tolerance. Read that carefully, because Pisces often struggles with this lesson. You care deeply, you understand deeply, you forgive deeply, you empathize deeply. But sometimes you allow behaviors that should have boundaries. Not because you agree with them, because you wish to avoid conflict. Now something changes. The reading shows emotional maturity emerging. You begin understanding that love does not mean accepting everything. Compassion does not mean allowing everything. Kindness does not mean sacrificing your peace. And honestly, this realization transforms relationships because healthy boundaries strengthen genuine connections. They do not destroy them. There is another beautiful energy appearing. A quiet inner strength. Not aggressive strength, not defensive strength, peaceful strength. The kind that develops when someone finally understands their own value. And honestly, that strength is growing inside you now. For a long time, you may have accepted situations that were unclear. Mixed signals, emotional confusion, inconsistent behavior, relationships that required constant guessing. But the reading shows something shifting. You begin recognizing what you deserve. You begin recognizing your own worth. You begin recognizing when something is aligned and when it is not. And honestly, that awareness changes everything. Because once Pisces understands their value, they stop settling for emotional breadcrumbs. They stop accepting uncertainty disguised as connection. They stop shrinking themselves to keep others comfortable, and that creates space for healthier experiences, space for healthier relationships, space for healthier opportunities. The chapter closes with a powerful image. A Pisces standing calmly in their own energy, no longer trying to save everyone, no longer trying to carry everyone, no longer trying to earn what should be freely given, instead recognizing their own worth, protecting their own peace. And honestly, that may be one of the most powerful transformations of your entire year. There is something very interesting happening in your life now. And honestly, it has everything to do with clarity. Because for a long time, Pisces often chose to see the best in people. And that is one of your most beautiful qualities. You believe in growth. You believe in second chances. You believe in understanding. You believe that people can change. And honestly, sometimes they can. But the reading shows something different happening now. You are beginning to see people more clearly, not more negatively, more accurately. And there is a huge difference. Because maturity brings a special kind of wisdom. A wisdom that stops listening only to words and starts paying attention to actions. The reading repeatedly shows you entering a period of observation. Quiet observation. You are not confronting people. You are not creating drama. You are not making accusations. You are simply watching. And honestly, what you see is teaching you a lot. You begin noticing who truly celebrates your success, who genuinely wants the best for you, who supports your growth, who encourages your dreams, and perhaps most importantly, who merely tolerates your happiness. Because there is a difference, a very big difference. Not everyone who smiles at you is happy for you. Not everyone who stands beside you is rooting for your success. The reading does not show betrayal, it shows awareness. And honestly, awareness is a gift. Because once you see people clearly, you can love them appropriately, trust them appropriately, include them appropriately, without unrealistic expectations, without unnecessary disappointment. There is another major theme appearing around work and personal projects. And honestly, this energy feels incredibly positive. Because the reading repeatedly shows you underestimating yourself. You look at what you have not yet achieved. You look at what still needs improvement. You look at goals that remain unfinished. And because of that, you sometimes forget how much you have already accomplished. The reading shows a very important shift. You begin recognizing your own value, your own abilities, your own talents, your own strengths, not because someone finally validates you, because you begin seeing them yourself. And honestly, that changes everything. Because confidence built on self-awareness is much stronger than confidence built on praise. There is another fascinating situation appearing. Someone seems to believe they know exactly how you should live your life. Perhaps a family member, perhaps a friend, perhaps a colleague. Someone with strong opinions, strong advice, strong recommendations. And honestly, some of what they say may come from good intentions, but the reading reveals an important lesson. Listening is healthy. Surrendering your life decisions is not. Because nobody understands your dreams better than you. Nobody understands your struggles better than you. Nobody understands your path better than you. And now something changes. You begin listening more carefully to your own voice, your own intuition, your own wisdom, your own experience. And honestly, that creates enormous peace, because trying to satisfy everyone's expectations is exhausting. Trying to become what everyone else wants you to be is exhausting. Now the reading shows a different energy emerging. Authenticity. You stop asking, what do they want from me? And begin asking, what feels right for me? And honestly, that question changes your future. There is another beautiful transformation taking place. Confidence, not loud confidence, not ego, not arrogance, the quiet confidence of someone who finally understands, I have survived difficult chapters. I have overcome challenges. I have rebuilt myself. I am stronger than I thought. And honestly, that realization becomes powerful. Because when Pisces finally stops doubting their own light, life begins opening doors that once seemed impossible. The chapter closes with a powerful image. A Pisces standing in front of a mirror, not seeing flaws, not seeing limitations, not seeing old wounds, seeing strength, seeing wisdom, seeing growth. And honestly, that may be one of the most beautiful things you discover this year. There is a very interesting feeling appearing now. And honestly, it feels like something that once existed only in your imagination is finally beginning to move into reality. Because for a long time, Pisces has been dreaming, planning, visualizing, imagining possibilities, creating future scenarios inside the mind. And honestly, that is part of your nature. You possess one of the most powerful imaginations in the zodiac. You can see possibilities long before they become visible. You can feel potential long before it becomes reality. You can envision futures that other people cannot yet understand. The problem is that not everyone appreciates that gift. Some people call it unrealistic. Some call it fantasy. Some call it impossible. But the reading reveals something important. There is a huge difference between illusion and vision. And what I see here is vision. Because certain things you have been hoping for are beginning to show signs of life. Not complete manifestations yet, not finished results yet. But movement, evidence, progress, small confirmations that tell you this is real, this is possible, this is moving. And honestly, that is exciting. Because the reading shows several situations shifting from possibility into reality. There is another fascinating energy appearing. Your ability to read environments becomes unusually strong. You walk into a room and feel the atmosphere immediately. You speak with someone and sense their intentions. You hear a story and notice what was left unsaid. And honestly, this gift becomes even sharper now. The reading repeatedly encourages you to trust your first impressions. Not blindly, not without observation, but respectfully. Because many of your instincts are correct, especially when something feels slightly off, slightly unusual, slightly inconsistent. The reading shows your intuition working extremely well. And honestly, ignoring it would be a mistake. There is another beautiful energy surrounding personal growth. The reading shows learning, expansion, discovery, a widening of perspective. You encounter new ideas, new possibilities, new information, new opportunities for growth. And something very important happens. You begin realizing that certain limitations were never as permanent as you believed. For a while, you may have felt trapped by circumstances, restricted by situations, convinced that certain doors were permanently closed. But now new possibilities appear, alternative solutions appear, unexpected opportunities appear. And honestly, hope returns. Because one of the greatest gifts you can receive is the realization that your future contains more options than you originally believed. There is another beautiful message that appears very strongly. Someone is watching you, not in a negative way, in an inspired way. The reading shows someone quietly observing your strength, your resilience, your ability to keep going despite challenges, your ability to continue despite uncertainty. And honestly, you may have no idea this person exists, because from your perspective, you are simply living your life, handling your responsibilities, managing your challenges, trying your best. But from their perspective, you represent something important: hope, courage, persistence. And honestly, that is beautiful, because sometimes we inspire others without ever realizing it. There is another significant shift happening around criticism. And honestly, this may bring enormous relief, because there was a time when certain opinions affected you deeply. Certain criticisms lingered. Certain judgments occupied space in your mind for far too long. But now something changes. You begin recognizing a powerful truth. Not every opinion deserves access to your peace. Read that carefully, because the reading repeats it several times. Not every criticism is valuable. Not every judgment is accurate. Not every negative voice deserves your attention. And honestly, that realization creates freedom, because life becomes much lighter when you stop trying to satisfy people who will never be satisfied. The chapter closes with a powerful image. A Pisces standing in front of a horizon that suddenly looks much larger than before. Not because the world changed, because your perspective changed, because your confidence changed, because your belief in possibility returned. And honestly, that may be the beginning of something extraordinary. There is something very beautiful beginning to happen now, dot. And honestly, it is not happening around you, dot. It is happening within you, dot. Because for a long time, part of your energy was focused on proving things, dot. Proving your intentions, dot. Proving your value, proving your loyalty, proving your effort, proving your worth. And honestly, that has been exhausting. The reading shows a major shift. You begin understanding that the right people never needed constant proof. The people who truly see you already know. The people who genuinely value you already recognize it. And the people who constantly require proof would likely never be satisfied anyway. This realization creates freedom, real freedom, because you stop wasting energy trying to convince people who have already chosen not to understand. Instead, you begin investing that energy in yourself, your goals, your peace, your growth, your future. And honestly, that changes everything. There is another fascinating energy appearing around your dreams. Not nighttime dreams, life dreams. The plans you quietly carry, the ideas you rarely talk about, the goals you keep close to your heart. The reading shows movement, small at first, but undeniable. Something that once felt distant begins feeling reachable. Something that once seemed impossible begins looking realistic. And honestly, this may surprise you, because part of you became accustomed to waiting for better timing, waiting for more certainty, waiting for the right conditions, waiting for a sign. But now, something shifts. The reading repeatedly shows momentum. And momentum changes lives, because once something starts moving, it becomes much easier to keep moving. There is another beautiful lesson appearing. Stop apologizing for your sensitivity. Read that carefully, because Pisces often hears the same message throughout life. You care too much. You feel too much. You think too much. You worry too much. And honestly, those people misunderstand your gift, because your sensitivity is not your weakness. It is your awareness. It is why you notice things others miss. It is why people feel safe around you. It is why you understand emotions so deeply. It is why your intuition is so powerful. The problem was never your sensitivity. The problem was allowing people to take advantage of it. And now something changes. You remain kind, you remain compassionate, you remain caring, but you become wiser about where your energy goes. And honestly, that balance becomes powerful. There is another strong indication involving a decision, a personal decision, a meaningful one, something you have been considering for some time. The reading shows clarity arriving, not all at once, gradually, naturally, and honestly, you already know more than you think you do, because part of the answer has been sitting inside you for quite some time. You simply needed enough confidence to trust it. There is another fascinating development surrounding relationships. The reading shows you becoming much more selective, not colder, not distant, selective. You begin recognizing who brings peace into your life, who brings confusion, who brings support, who brings stress, who respects your energy, who constantly drains it. And honestly, this awareness changes your entire social world. Because once Pisces learns the difference between compassion and self-sacrifice, everything becomes healthier. There is another beautiful message appearing. You are beginning to trust your own journey. For a long time, comparison may have created pressure. Looking at other people, their timelines, their achievements, their relationships, their success, and wondering whether you should be further ahead. But now something changes. You begin realizing that your path was never supposed to look like theirs. Your lessons are different. Your timing is different. Your purpose is different. And honestly, that realization creates enormous peace. The chapter closes with a powerful image. A Pisces walking forward with their head held higher than before. Not because life suddenly became easier, because they finally began believing in themselves again. And honestly, that belief may be the very thing that changes everything that comes next. There is a very powerful transformation taking place inside you now. And honestly, most people around you may not even notice it at first. Because the change is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is not something that announces itself. It is quiet, internal, deep. The reading repeatedly shows a Pisces who is beginning to see life differently, not because the world changed, because you changed. For a long time, you carried questions. Questions about people, questions about relationships, questions about decisions, questions about your own path. And honestly, some of those questions never received clear answers. But now something important happens. You stop needing every answer. Read that carefully. Because this lesson appears repeatedly. Not every chapter requires an explanation. Not every ending requires closure. Not every disappointment requires understanding. Sometimes peace arrives the moment we stop demanding answers from situations that can no longer provide them. And honestly, that realization creates freedom. There is another beautiful energy appearing around your emotional world. The reading shows you becoming lighter, not because your responsibilities disappear, not because life becomes perfect, because your relationship with those responsibilities changes. You stop carrying everything emotionally. You stop treating every challenge as a personal burden. You stop absorbing every problem around you. And honestly, that creates enormous relief. Because Pisces often carries invisible weight that nobody sees, weight that nobody asks you to carry, weight that you pick up simply because you care. Now the reading shows you becoming more conscious, more selective, more protective of your peace. And honestly, that is healthy. There is another fascinating situation appearing around opportunity. Something begins opening, a door, a possibility, a project, a conversation, an invitation, something that initially seems small, but carries much greater significance than you realize. The reading repeatedly shows movement, forward movement, positive movement, and honestly, this opportunity appears connected to confidence, because before it arrives, you must first believe you deserve it. And that may be one of the most important lessons appearing here. You do deserve good things. You do deserve healthy relationships. You do deserve recognition. You do deserve happiness. And honestly, part of your growth now involves accepting that truth. There's another strong energy appearing around self-respect. This is beautiful because the reading shows you becoming increasingly aware of your value, not through ego, not through pride, through experience. You begin remembering everything you have survived, everything you have overcome, everything you have learned, everything you have rebuilt. And honestly, that awareness changes the way you allow people to treat you. Because once Pisces truly understands their worth, they stop negotiating with disrespect. They stop accepting confusion as affection. They stop settling for less than they deserve. And that creates space for healthier experiences. There is also a beautiful energy surrounding your future. The reading repeatedly shows hope returning, not blind optimism. Earned hope, the kind that comes after difficult seasons, the kind that comes after healing, the kind that comes after growth. And honestly, this hope feels different because it is no longer based on fantasy. It is based on possibility, real possibility. There is another message appearing very clearly. Stop underestimating your own influence because someone around you is learning from your example, watching your resilience, watching your strength, watching your ability to continue despite challenges. And honestly, you inspire more people than you realize. Not because you are perfect, because you are authentic, because you continue moving forward, because you continue believing, because you continue rebuilding. The chapter closes with a powerful image, a Pisces standing beneath calm waters, no longer fighting every current, no longer resisting every change. Instead, learning how to flow with life, learning how to trust themselves, learning how to trust the journey. And honestly, that trust may become one of the greatest gifts of this entire cycle. As this cycle begins approaching its conclusion, there is one realization becoming impossible to ignore. And honestly, it may be one of the most important lessons of your entire year, because for a very long time, you have been carrying emotions that no longer belong in your future. Old disappointments, old fears, old attachments, old expectations, old versions of yourself. And while each of them once served a purpose, their purpose is ending. The reading repeatedly shows a Pisces standing at the edge of a new chapter. Not because life is forcing change, because your soul is ready for it. And honestly, there is a difference. Because forced change feels painful. Chosen change feels liberating. The reading shows you beginning to release things that once felt impossible to let go of. Not because they suddenly stop mattering, because you finally realize how much space they have been occupying inside your heart. And honestly, that space is needed now. Because something new is trying to enter your life. New opportunities, new perspectives, new relationships, new possibilities, new versions of yourself. And none of those things can fully arrive while the past occupies every room. There is another beautiful energy appearing. Gratitude. Not the kind of gratitude people talk about casually. Real gratitude. The kind that develops when someone finally looks back and recognizes how much they have already survived. The reading shows you becoming more aware of your own journey. Not just the difficult parts, the victories too, the progress too, the healing too, the growth too. And honestly, you have grown far more than you realize. Because when we live through change slowly, we often fail to notice it. But the reading sees it clearly. You are not the same person you were a year ago. Not emotionally, not spiritually, not mentally. You have learned too much. You have experienced too much. You have evolved too much. And honestly, that growth deserves recognition. There is another strong energy surrounding relationships. The reading repeatedly shows clarity. Not necessarily easy clarity, but necessary clarity. You begin recognizing who truly walks beside you, who supports you, who respects you, who remains present when life becomes difficult. And honestly, not every realization feels comfortable, because some people may not be who you hoped they were. But the reading reminds you of something important. Truth creates freedom, even when it arrives wrapped in disappointment. Because illusions may feel comforting temporarily, but clarity creates peace permanently. There is another beautiful message appearing around self-confidence. The reading shows you trusting yourself more, not because life finally guarantees success, because you finally recognize your own resilience. You begin remembering everything you have overcome, everything you have rebuilt, everything you have survived. And honestly, that creates a powerful foundation. Because confidence is not built through perfect circumstances. It is built through experience. And your experience has already proven something important. You are far stronger than you sometimes believe. There is also a beautiful energy surrounding dormant dreams. Dreams you set aside, goals you postponed, ideas you forgot, plans you placed on hold. The reading suggests that some of these dreams begin returning. Not exactly as they once were, more mature, more realistic, more prepared. And honestly, that is beautiful, because it means you never lost your ability to hope. Perhaps you became more cautious, perhaps you became more selective, perhaps you became more observant, but hope survived. And honestly, hope is one of your greatest strengths. The chapter closes with a powerful image, a Pisces standing on the threshold of a new season, no longer focused on what was lost, no longer focused on what ended, no longer focused on what should have happened. Instead, focused on what can still happen, focused on what is possible, focused on what is coming next. And honestly, what is coming next feels much brighter than what is being left behind. As this reading comes to its conclusion, there is one final message appearing with extraordinary clarity. And honestly, it may be the most important message of your entire journey. Because when I look at the energy surrounding you now, I do not see someone reaching the end of a road. I see someone finally beginning to understand their own path. And there is a huge difference. For a long time, you felt deeply. You carried responsibilities, you carried expectations, you carried worries, you carried hopes, you carried disappointments, you carried questions that never seemed to find answers. And honestly, that emotional intensity has been exhausting. But now something changes. The reading shows understanding arriving, not all at once, not dramatically, gradually, naturally. You begin understanding why certain people left, why certain doors closed, why certain plans failed, why certain chapters ended. And honestly, when understanding arrives, peace is never far behind. Not because every problem suddenly disappears, because your heart finally stops fighting with the past. There is another beautiful transformation happening. You begin appreciating what already exists in your life. The right people, the genuine connections, the quiet victories, the lessons learned, the small blessings that once seemed ordinary. And honestly, this changes your energy completely, because there is a tendency to focus only on what is missing, what has not happened yet, what remains unfinished, what still needs improvement. But now something shifts. You begin recognizing what you have already built. And honestly, there is much more beauty there than you have been acknowledging. There is another strong energy surrounding relationships, not only romantic relationships, human relationships. The reading shows you finally seeing people clearly. Who remains during difficult times, who only appears during good times, who genuinely supports you, who simply enjoys convenience. And honestly, some of these realizations may surprise you, but every one of them serves a purpose, because nobody grows while living inside illusions. Eventually, we must see people as they truly are, and the reading shows you developing exactly that clarity. There is another beautiful shift happening around self-confidence, because there were moments when you doubted yourself, doubted your choices, doubted your intuition, doubted your direction, doubted whether you were doing the right thing. But now something begins reorganizing itself inside you. You trust your experience more. You trust your instincts more. You trust your wisdom more. And honestly, that strengthens everything. Your projects, your relationships, your emotional well-being, your professional life, your future decisions. Everything. There is also a powerful energy surrounding dreams that had been sleeping. Dreams you placed aside, ideas you postponed, plans you temporarily abandoned. The reading shows some of them returning. Not exactly the same. Stronger, wiser, more realistic, more prepared. And honestly, that is beautiful, because it proves something important. You never stopped believing, Perhaps you became more careful. Perhaps you became more selective. Perhaps you became more observant. But deep inside, you never stopped believing. And that belief remains one of your greatest strengths, because Pisces possesses something rare. Even after storms, even after disappointment, even after heartbreak, even after uncertainty, you still believe there is something beautiful ahead. And honestly, that belief is powerful. The final spiritual message of this reading is simple. Do not fear moving forward. Do not fear releasing what has already fulfilled its purpose. Do not fear trusting your intuition. Do not fear occupying the space you deserve. Because the cycle opening before you is not a cycle of loss. It is not a cycle of limitation. It is not a cycle of retreat. It is a cycle of growth, a cycle of emotional liberation, a cycle of maturity, a cycle of clarity. And perhaps most importantly, a cycle where you begin believing in your own light again. The final image surrounding your reading is beautiful. A Pisces standing before an open horizon, no longer carrying the weight of old emotional chains, no longer trapped by old fears, no longer questioning their worth. Instead, moving forward with wisdom, moving forward with peace, moving forward with confidence, moving forward with faith. And honestly, when Pisces begins believing in their own light again, the entire world seems to open before them.